Deadheads love the Grateful Dead. Parrot heads love Jimmy Buffett. The No Shoes Nation love Kenny Chesney. And Swifties love Taylor Swift. And then there are the Juggalos. They love the band Insane Clown Posse, or ICP, and the other bands on their record label. I'm Lexi, and this is Delightfully Different. You may not have heard of ICP. Their songs aren't played on the radio, and they're not mainstream. ICP have been around for a long time. They formed in Detroit in 1989. The members were living in poverty, and they wrote songs about it and started a family-like culture centered around it. Despite not gaining a mainstream audience, they have millions of fans who follow them religiously and refer to themselves as juggalos. Juggalos wear clown makeup, love to drink and spray Faygo, and tend to have a lot of tattoos. They've also been labeled a gang, even though they have no association with any organized crime. Today, I talked to a juggalo about his love of the band and his crazy life story. Meet Ted.
I am a happy father of a bunch of kids and a grandfather newly. I am a juggalo for the most part of my life, I guess. And I became a minister within the last year and a half. And I am an ex-convict who served 2 years in Utah State Penitentiary. I'm part Native American. My mother comes from a polygamous family, a pretty famous one at that. So I'm a lot of things.
It's a lot, Ted. It's so much stuff. Let's start off with your parents. You said you were the son of a Native American and a woman who was in the FLDS. For the people who don't know about the FLDS or don't live in Utah, FLDS stands for Fundamentalist Latter-day Saint, and it's kind of culty a little bit, where they have multiple wives. And if you're talking about the most famous one, is it the one who's in prison right now?
So it's actually I lived out there for literally only when my mother and father split and my mom went back for a brief moment, and I was like first grade. But from what I understood, my grandfather ran against Warren Jeffs, and that is why there's First Ward and Second Ward. He's pretty famous. I know my aunt was on Larry King Live before she passed talking about him, but his name is Merriam Hammond. If I'm not mistaken, I think he named Colorado City. He named it Short Creek before it was Colorado City. Anyways, the Hammond house is still in Colorado City, but most of the followers that followed him live in Centennial Park, so across the highway. So I know they found that he had a family in Mexico as well, like a compound in Mexico. I don't know if it was before the compound in Mexico was counted or after, but I think he had somewhat of 93 children was the number.
Holy cow. And it's such a bizarre thing. And I know most people are familiar with Warren Jeffs, probably the most famous one out of all of them. That's crazy. Your mother was FLDS. You didn't grow up that way, though.
So my mother never, my mother grew up at FLDS. My mother ran off when she was 17. When I say Warren Jeffs, that my grandfather ran against, it wasn't Warren Jeffs that's in jail. It was his father, Warren Jeffs Sr. But the same family. And I'm related to all the Jessups and Barlows and all of, my grandmother was Shari Beislein. She's a wonderful lady. Shares a lot of the same mental illness as I do. She was arrested for running around that town, not wearing much clothing. And I've heard all the crazy stories of her. She was a character, but she's such a lovely lady. She's still with us. She doesn't live in the Hammond house and hasn't. She lived with us in 99 and 2000 with my mother. And then she lived with my aunt after that for a while.
And so your father's Native American. Your mother leaves the FLDS and meet your father.
Yeah. So my father is he's not full blooded, but he is definitely Cherokee Native. We went back on astrology as far as we could. One of my ancestors is known, they have documents that he actually walked a Trail of Tears.
Wow.
So I found that, we found a I stumbled on it on like this graveyardwebsite.com, like where you like look at like your family members like graves and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I just kept going because we with ancestry.com we could only go far back a certain, like our records were only so far back, and we were told that the reason for that was the Timothy McVeigh bombing.
Oh.
Ruined like my family's history. Like all those records were in that.
Wow.
That's always what that's what. So my brother did a report on our ancestry when he was in like second or third grade. We went to this center in St. George, Utah, to get this like ancestry.com thing done, and it was through the Mormon Church.
Yeah.
And so Dorcas Falling was Native American, and her husband was Jonathan Armstrong or something like that, and that's my father's last name. And so they both walked a trail of tears, even though he wasn't Native. They made him walk as well.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was documented in a book that I found. So I went on that website, and it said that as mentioned, it like one of his things for his grave, it was like somebody had like quoted him from this book, and it said how he and a few others walked from Georgia to Willicott, Oklahoma, where they like set up the Cherokee Nation and stuff like that. So
you have such a rich history with your family. Yeah. And then these are two very different types of people who came together. How did that affect your childhood, being the son of a Native American man and a woman who escaped the FLDS?
So my father was very abusive, and which is why I don't have his last name. So I've actually never seen my father and my mother in the same room without physical or verbal confrontation. I lived with both for a while, but I've never once have I ever seen my parents even say anything remotely nice to each other. Oh. My mom never really like spoke bad about my dad. When she was in the same room with him, she just couldn't handle it anymore. But he put her through a lot of years of physical and mental abuse that was just sickening. So, and then
I'm sorry to hear that. Is that what led you into discovering the Insane Clown Posse and becoming a juggalo?
I don't know. I think I just grew up around those people. But when I saw the people were there, but then when I sound like I never really cared for a lot of their party songs. Like a lot of people think ICP's funny. I don't like ICP's funny music. I don't think they're very funny. Okay. They have an artist on there named Blaze. I think he's pretty funny sometimes, but like, I had a lot of like suicidal ideation issues. Like my aunt told me she remembers like me being 8 years old at Thanksgiving one time, like telling her I wanted to cut my chest open. Like I remember that by the time I was 10 or 11, it became ritual to pray every night, not to wake up in the morning. Oh, and like I literally do it every night. And I think that ICP's emotional and depressive songs gave me something to relate there. Suicide Hotline is a song that, I mean, it's just like, it made me feel like somebody understood what I was feeling, you know what I mean? And that I didn't feel that way ever, you know, like I never really had anybody that I felt like I could relate to. And then they had a few others. There's an artist that they signed named Boondocks, and he had a song called Cold Cruel World. And I mean, that was just like, I mean, I can't even listen to it now without wanting to cry. Like, you know what I mean? I was never really that emotional back then, but now it's just like every time I hear that song, I feel the pain I felt for so long. ICP has to stay relevant. They have to attract new followers, new listeners, and stuff like that. So today's music, I can't really say it's my thing. I still listen to a lot of music that associates with them, like Strange Music, Tech Nine, King ISO. I listen to that stuff all the time. It's a lot of it's more positive. I did take so like my daughter, when she turned 16, I took her to a Insane Clown Posse show.
You did.
So this is my stepdaughter, but she grew up in a lot like crazier environment, and she's not. By the time I knew her, and she was already 10 when me and her mom got together. But she just grew up in a lot rougher time than our younger children did. So, you know, and her music taste was just there already, and she already kind of had, had already known a few songs. They had a song called "My Axe" that she loved all the time and would listen to it all the time before she even met me. And so they did a show in Salt Lake in like 2019, I think it was. Right, it was right before COVID. It was called Fury Fest, and it had DJ Paul from 3-6 Mafia, which is like before the Juggalo music came in. That was like my stuff, you know. Like I love that. So it had DJ Paul from 3-6 Mafia, and then Ritz, who was on Strange Music at the time, and that's another artist that I loved and listened to. So I was like, you know what? And then there was a band called Mushroom Head, and man, they are weird.
Yeah, I remember.
So it was like all of these. There's another artist, Ouija Mac. He's like the newer Juggalo. He signed with Insane Clown Posse. He's the newer Juggalo following. But so I was like, you know what? I've never seen DJ Paul. He won an Academy Award. I mean, that's just impressive. So I was like, to see ICP, DJ Paul, Ritz, all of them together, I was like, might as well. So we bought tickets. I took my daughter to her first concert ever, which clown show in Salt Lake. And I've been out of the Salt Lake Juggalo scene since the gang segregated prison days. So I'm in there and I see all these people that I did time with, and like all these, you know, they're all calling me my old prison nickname. My daughter's just like, what the hell is going on? You know?
Did she have a good time though? Did she enjoy it?
Oh, she had the time of her life. Yeah, she had the time of her life. They ICP picked her up on stage, had her spraying Fago at all over the people. We met. Yeah, I bought the VIP ticket to meet Ritz because that was one of her favorite artists, and he took the time to talk to her. He was really nice, really great guy. And then we didn't even have VIP tickets to meet the others, but I have a picture with us with DJ Paul. DJ Paul signed all our stuff. He was a great guy. And then, like I said, ICP pulled her up on stage at the end of the show, had her spraying everybody with Fago bottles. And I mean, you couldn't pick a better first comp. I don't think that any, like, even if she sees artists, I know that she'll see artists that are better than Insane Clown Posse for sure. But I just don't think that anybody will put on a show like that for her ever again. And that was just to be 16 years old and see that.
And to be there with you on top of it, because you know what you're doing. I know your face lights up when you're talking about Juggalos and Insane Clown Posse. Your whole demeanor has changed. I have some questions about some of that stuff. Could you explain what the Gathering of the Juggalos is?
Yes. So the Gathering of the Juggalos is it used to be held in Cave in Rock, Illinois, which is only like about 90 miles from where I'm at right now. And it's where once a year we all get together and meet, and they got blowjob contests. It's insane. It is insane. I mean, some people are like, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. And some people are like, that was fucking disgusting.
That's their whole jam though, right?
It is. Yeah.
Awesome and disgusting all at the same time.
That's our bread and butter right there. So
does this coincide with Juggalo Day?
So no, Juggalo Day was, I think, adapted later on. Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, which is February 17th, like I said, I kind of just stayed into the old school era. The gathering usually happens in August, August and late July, something like that. I went to one gathering. It was in 2008. That's the only one I've ever been to.
Okay.
I'm really poor. I don't, to go to the gathering is extremely expensive. So
seems like it. Did you dress like a clown when you went, or did you dress in makeup when you went this last time?
Yes, the last concert I didn't, but I have enough going on here. I don't feel like I needed much more. And
when you say, because no one can see you, you say you have a bunch of face tattoos. So people cannot tell. And you've got a lot of face tattoos, and I recognize the anarchy symbol. Are the rest of that tattoos, do they have anything to do with Insane Clown Posse or being a Juggalo?
So I have Juggalo on the back of my neck. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, I can see it.
Okay. So my first Juggalo tattoo was this. I got when I was 15. You see the little initials MCL, right? That stands for Much Clown Love. That's our thing.
Much clown love. Okay, I did not know that.
I got clown on one fist. I got love on the other. So the first 6 albums were called Joker's Cards.
Yeah.
I have the last 3 Joker's cards tattooed on my arm as part of my sleeve. So that's for the Great Malenko, and it's my version. It's not like the original version. It's like my drawing of it.
Wow.
That is the Amazing Jekyll Brothers. That's the 5th one, probably the best album there was, and a lot of people argue that one, but it was just wonderful.
So you've got a lot of Juggalo inspired tattoo art, which is common for a lot of Juggalos. You guys tend to get tattoos representing your love of the band. Also, what's the deal with Faygo, the official drink of the Juggalos? Why is that? Where did that come from?
If I was doing this in my garage, you would be a little more impressed. But I have an entire wall made out of Faygo 12-pack cases. Anyways, so are you from Utah?
No, I grew up I'm from Missouri, actually. I grew up in St. Louis, but I've been living here for the past 15 almost years.
I don't know if they have Shasta in St. Louis.
They did, Shasta? Yep. I used to drink it growing up.
Okay, so you know how, like, if you're really poor, you can afford a 2-liter, 3-liter of Shasta, get some tiki punch or something. Yeah, Vest, yes. Okay, so Faygo is the Detroit version of that.
Okay.
Now, Missouri has Faygo now. I don't think they did back then, but
yeah, I didn't know if that was when I had first heard it when I was growing up.
Detroit has Faygo. And I know that, like, out west, you can get Faygo at Dollar Tree now. It's pretty cool. So it's spreading, which is great. But yeah, no, Faygo is just really cheap, shitty soda.
Okay.
We like it. My kids like it. They love it. We drink it. It's cheap. It's affordable. It's wonderful. But yeah, no, it was just like being they were borderline homeless, if not homeless. So, like, scrounging up 88 cents to go buy a 2-liter to share with you and your friend, you know what I mean, to get by for the day. That's what it was about. So, as far as I'm aware, I think Faygo actually hates the Insane Clown Posse and wants nothing to do with them.
That's crazy.
I don't know why they would not be in business if it wasn't for them.
Right there, no one would know who Faygo was if it wasn't for ICP. I mean, that's how I know what it is.
At first, they said they didn't want, like, I think I read something where Faygo's like, we don't want to be associated with that kind of music. And, like, I'm thinking, like, rap music. And then they signed rappers. So I'm like, oh, they just think ICP sucks at this point. So, like, I've seen Faygo, like, sponsor rappers, like, not signed, but, like, sponsored rapper. They have it in the commercials now and stuff like that. Right. But, but yeah, Faygo wants absolutely nothing to do with the Insane Clown Posse. And which is crazy to me. I would be very thankful if I was them, because they show up with, like, semi trucks full to every concert. And yeah, I don't even know how that gets cleaned up.
And there's a lot of you. This isn't just a small amount of people. Gathering of the Juggalos.
Salt Lake has a huge following.
Right.
And there was an issue I had with that. Like, Salt Lake Juggalos, like, growing up in Nevada and Salt Lake, like, going back and forth a lot. Like, Nevada was a lot cooler, more laid back. So when I'd go to Salt Lake and deal with the Juggalos in Salt Lake, I'd get irritated. And I have a lot of love for some Juggalos in Salt Lake, but going in the prison system, a lot of them are in there for some very messed up things. And so there's a lot of sex offender Juggalos, which is weird because they have a lot of music against that. Violent J of the Insane Clown Posse is, like, a victim of sex abuse as a child and stuff, and so, like, he's always made music that was against that kind of stuff. So, but I don't know. I would say that the section we were in, so, like, when I was locked up, I made it about 2 weeks before some Juggalo killed a ex-gang member in the Serranos with a lunch tray or something like that, and they gang segregated all of us. So that meant I went from being, like, housed regularly to being in Supermax, where I was only allowed out of my cell for an hour and 15 minutes every other day.
In 2011, the Juggalos were declared by the Justice Department's National Gang Intelligence Center as a loosely organized hybrid gang. I believe you guys are still considered that under the law. So. Which kind of leads to you, and
they ended up suing, and there was a march on Washington in 2017, but it didn't seem to help the situation. And then let's fast forward to you. You end up getting arrested as an 18-year-old.
See, I got arrested at 18, like about a month before my 19th birthday in Ogden, Utah.
What was it? What did you get arrested for?
For having a fake ID.
So I know a lot of people who have gotten in trouble for a fake ID, and they got a ticket. You got arrested. It seems like the punishment does not fit the crime.
So I was, being a juggalo and wearing band shirts. I was wearing a shirt that had this logo, the spade, which is for SRH, which stands for supporting radical habits. But they had an album out called Stoners Wreaking Havoc. So a lot of cops mistake that for like marijuana, like a symbol of marijuana. And I don't have anything against marijuana, but weirdly, even though I fit the description, I don't smoke marijuana. I have before, but like I could probably count on both hands how many times I've ever smoked marijuana or done any drugs whatsoever, other than like when I was hospitalized and prescribed medication. But like I've never done drugs. Like I've never tried acid. I've never done coke. I've never done I've never done meth. First time I ever saw meth, I was in prison.
So you basically got in extra trouble because of the way that you look.
Yeah. Now I was drinking. I wasn't drunk at the time, but I was using alcohol, and that does count as, abusing substances, I guess. But the cop assumed that with the shirt I was wearing and the tattoos I had, he said I smelled like marijuana, and I'm like, well, either you're smelling my armpits and you're mistaking them, or we had that juggalo funk going on for a while.
So they're going to send you to prison at this point, and you said, I'm not having it.
They put me in jail immediately, which is uncalled for in my opinion.
Yes,
it is uncalled for. So I spent 3 days in jail. I have to get bailed out. I got bailed out. After I got bailed out, I went to court, and they're like, "Okay, well, we're gonna give you 60 days in jail and 3 years probation." And I'm like, "Oh, it just didn't sound right." I went home, and the girl I was with at the time, she told me that if I were to go back to jail, that she wasn't going to be there when I got out. And I didn't need much more convincing than to run.
Okay.
So I ran to Southern Utah. I was there for about a year, and my life went downhill, like way bad. Me and her didn't make it much longer anyways. That's when my suicide attempt happened anyways, was right after that. So after attempting suicide, the cops come into the hospital, and they tried to arrest me right there. And they said, you're going to go to Utah wants you. We're sending you to Utah. And the doctor's like, you guys aren't sending him anywhere. Like, the doctor was really offended how the police came into the hospital and tried to take over the situation. Yeah. So I'm in ICU for about 10 days. After that, they send me to Ross and Neal Adult Mental Health in Las Vegas. And the council person in Vegas told me, they're like, we don't turn anybody over to the cops. That's just we don't. And so I was out again. And then, I don't know, I realized that my mom wasn't going to speak to me if I stayed on the run. So I called the bounty hunter and this guy was awesome. He's from Ogden, private detective. And I had pissed him off because I was playing games with him pretty bad. And so I called him up, and I was like, hey, I'm willing to turn myself in, but you're going to have to take me to go see my mom. And I want you to buy me dinner before I go. And then we're good. And not only that, he put money on my books and offered me a job when I got out. I'm not even playing.
Wow. That's incredible. You must have really made an impression on the guy, because that's
when I opened up my property in jail, when I got out, his business card was sitting in there. He told me, because I guess he like missed a wedding or something, because my mom was helping him, telling him where I was at, and I wasn't really there. And I just was like, I knew that they were looking for me, and I was playing with them. And and so like this went on for like a year. And so after he was like, well, how do I know you're really going to turn yourself in and stuff? And I said, well, I'm not my mom's not ever going to talk to me until I get this done. how do I know you're going to really take me to go see my mother? We're just going to have to trust each other. And the fact that was the first time I actually talked to him, and then I kept my word, I think that showed him that meant something.
Well, that's incredible. But then you end up, how long did you have to go to prison for?
So I did, they counted the 2, so they sentenced me for 2 months that I did in jail. And then after that, I got sent to the 2 months I did in jail counted. Then I did 10 months in prison.
Okay.
And they sent me to a halfway house in Ogden as well.
While you were in prison, though, you were considered a gang member because of your Juggalo status, and it's tattooed all over you.
Yes.
And so what sort of things did they do in prison because you were considered a gang member at this point?
So other gangs had a hard time considering us a gang. So
right.
They would come at us a little strong sometimes. They would be like, what do you claim? What do you bang? They wanted to know, like, if we did, you know what I mean? If we wanted to treat it like a gang, and if we treated it like a gang, then they would treat us like gang members. But if we didn't treat it like a gang, they usually didn't care. They just wanted people to be real. And then if you got scared and you kind of like acted real scared about them, then they would just treat you like a bitch. And that in prison isn't something you want to be treated like. So,
sure.
Yeah. And so it was, I was a tattoo artist. I had a pretty easy time in prison.
Okay, so people came to you to get their artwork done.
Yeah. So I had an okay time while I was there. Plus, I had an incident in Ogden jail where a friend of mine that was also a Juggalo had beat the crap out of this dude that called me something I didn't know you weren't supposed to call me. And when I got to prison, I got told the same story, but he told the story in that we were in the other shoes, that I beat the crap out of this guy for him and stuff. And this was a very well-respected guy in the prison, not only in the Juggalo community, but in the prison system. He had done a lot of time. He had like 12 years on his rap sheet. And so I was already like vouched for by him. So when I got there,
it had a reputation.
Yeah. His cousin Pat was like, hey, Fatso is what they used to call me. He's like, you're Fatso. He's like, you sit here with me. Here's some stuff that Shane left for you. And, and took care of me. And it's just, and Pat was the only other tattoo artist in the section. So, I mean, it was just a perfect like start for me. But I did see some stuff there where people didn't have such a pleasant time. That's for sure. I did get stabbed once, but I think it was only for I think I was an excuse so that the guy could go to Supermax. So when I was in medical, so like when you're gang segregated, you have to be walked with a cop and you're shackled the whole time. He was the rival gang. It was the Serenios or whatever that they said, but the guy didn't continue to try to fight me or nothing. He ran at me and he stuck a razor blade right here. As you can see, my tattoo's a little messed up right here.
Yeah.
I stuck a razor blade in my stomach, luckily staying in this lovely figure that I've maintained so well. Not much was done other than a little irritation and some anger for a moment. But he, as soon as the cop told him to comply, he complied. Weirdly, it was like the guy was telling me sorry with the way he was looking at me. You know what I mean? Like, I think he just needed to, I think he was on a mission and needed to go somewhere. I did get in some fights there, stupid stuff, sometimes on my part, sometimes on other people's part. I got beat up really well a couple of times. And, I learned there, it doesn't really matter if you know how to fight, because 90% of the times it's the cell who wins. Hitting your head on a bunk bed in the middle of a fight hurts 10 times harder than anybody else I've ever met in there.
I'm Lexi, and this is Delightfully Different. Today I'm talking with Ted, a Juggalo who went to prison and was labeled a gang member because of his love of the band Insane Clown Posse.
But while you were in there, you actually got your gang claws removed.
Yes, that was impressive. And I got in there. I did the 10 months. I went to the halfway house. I got caught with a phone. They wanted to go through my phone, and I wasn't going to let them go through my phone. They were like, either let us go through your phone or you're going to go back to prison. And so I took the SIM card out, or SD card out, the memory card, not SIM card. I swallowed it and I threw the phone up against the wall. And I said, biscuits and gravy is on Saturday. Let's get back. And I tell you what, I had the funniest incident that ever happened on my way there. So when they're taking me back from Nuke to Ogden jail to get transported back to prison, Officer Bonnier in Ogden jail, he's so funny. He is hilarious. So he takes me in, and Officer, I think Woods was the gang cop. Woods is talking, or no, Woods was the asshole cop. I can't remember who the gang cop it was that took me in, but Woods remembered me from last time. He's like, "Oh, I knew you'd be back," you know. And I told everybody I was going to come back because once I knew I was on probation, like probation in Utah with no support system, I knew nobody there. The first time I ever went to Ogden was the day I got arrested. I'd never been in that town before then. So when I go in there, he's like, "Yeah, I told you you'd be back and stuff." And so the gang cop's like, "Well, he's a ninja," because that's what we call ourselves and stuff like this. And Bonnier chuckles a little bit. And Woods is like, "Oh yeah, what kind of ninja?" So I'm just not really talking too much, but they're classifying all my tattoos, and I have this one. Do you see the JRB right there?
Yeah, JRB.
So he was like, "What does that stand for?" And I said, "Juggalo Riders, bitch." And Bonnier just laughed. He's like, "Oh, that kind of ninja." Funniest thing in the world. It was hilarious. That cop hated my guts for the rest of his life. I'm sure of it. Oh, it was priceless. But they sent me back to prison. Prison's like, "Hey, we're gonna send you right back out to Nuke, and we're gonna put you on this gang clause, and we're gonna do all this stuff." And I'm like, "No, I'd rather do the 5 years that I owe, because that's the most. Like I'd already done 12 months altogether. And I'm like, I owe 5 years the most. I'm like, I'd rather just do that than play your guys' game again." I said, "I have no support system in Utah. If you send me out there, I'm going to come right back." And I knew that was going to happen the first time. Right. So no, I said, if you send me out there without the gang clause, it's possible. And they wanted me to complete a gang program while I was in prison, like this STG program and stuff. So I explained to them, I said, I have the federal right to go, because I had Insane Clown Posse CDs in my cell, I said, I have the federal right to listen to this music. And that's all it is to me. It's music. I'm not out here committing crimes with juggalos. I committed crime because of myself. I didn't do it because I was a juggalo. I took accountability for my actions being me, and not because I'm not going to let music persuade me into doing crazy shit. I told him, I said, so whatever happens here today is between you guys. The stipulations of the gang clause was if I listened to that music, I would violate the gang clause. If I hung out with another juggalo, I would violate that gang clause. Anything like that. If I sat in a car that had a Hatchet Man sticker on it, a Cottonmouth King sticker, or a Tech 9 sticker, even though they weren't all juggalos, I would violate. And I'm like, well, that means I couldn't talk to half of my family and half of my friends ever again. And so I said, no matter what, I'm going to go back to my cell full of nothing but juggalos in that whole section. I'm going to listen to some juggalo music. I'm going to eat my food. And you guys are going to decide what to do with my future as it is. Nothing that happens here today is going to change what happens when I go back to my cell today. And I plan on listening to that kind of music, or whatever music makes me happy, for the rest of my life. So I'm not interested in this gang clause, and I'm not interested in lying to you guys and telling you guys I'm going to do something I'm not going to do. Because if you want me to if you want me to lie to you and say, yeah, I'll accept the gang clause, I'm just letting you know I'm going to violate that every single day, beginning the ride that comes and picks me up from prison. So it's like, you guys can either understand that that's not something I'm physically capable of doing without being dishonest. And I've done a lot of I had a lot of lying issues, especially to my mother and stuff growing up. And I've done a lot of self-growth in there. And I said, lying is no longer part of me. And I have no need to lie to you. I have no need to lie to them. I don't want to lie to myself. So I'm just letting you know, I'm going to listen to this music every day, probably till the rest of my life. And I'm not going to go commit gang crimes because of this music. Might be a little different. I might look a little weird. I might hang out with some weird people, but that happens to people in the judicial system, law enforcement officers. I mean, there is some, I said, you guys don't want me to hold you accountable for everything a bad cop did or a bad judge did. So don't hold me accountable for every bad juggalo out there, because I assure you there's a lot of them, just like there's a lot of bad officers out there. But I'm not going to lie to you guys and tell you I'm going to complete something that's not capable of it.
So you tell them like, this isn't working for me. I'm not a gang member. I'm going to listen to this music. That's ridiculous. And what did they say? They agreed with you?
Yeah, it was crazy. And it made my head blow up a little bit. And I think I don't know. I'm very glad that things worked out the way, but I feel like it could have, at first they didn't. First they sent me back a probation paper with the gang clause on it. And so I refused to sign it. I tell the guards I'm not going to sign it. I'm just not. So they're like, so you're refusing probation. So I'm like, yeah. So then we go back and we meet and stuff. So then they hand me the same paper, but without it. And then I'm like, you know what? They took that off. I let it go to my head. I'm like, I'm not going to sign that either. I don't want to be in Utah anymore. And I said, please, let me prove to you guys that I've literally like grown as a person. I told him, I'm like, I grew up like with a gangster life mentality, not necessarily a gang member. And I told him, I said that to me that it doesn't have anything to do with being in a gang. It's not just like the word gangster, I guess, more like just criminal or whatever. I was just into some bad things. And the difference is now is that, I don't need a law to tell me what's right and wrong. I know what I did was wrong and I can take accountability for that. And I think that meant something to them. They're like, I'm like, yes, what I did was wrong. And I don't need you guys to tell me that I was wrong. I knew what I did was wrong. So what I did was wrong. And I told him, I said, honestly, I don't even believe I'm in prison for what I'm in prison for. I said, to me, this is trash. This is a horrible thing. But I said, honestly, I deserve to be here. And I know that in my heart. And if I didn't end up here, I'd be a lot worse off. And because in all reality, prison was the best. Before I had kids, prison was the best 2 years of my life.
Yeah, you said that when you wrote to me, and I find that really interesting. Is it because you changed your life around while you were in there?
Well, I think what started it was because I was popular in there, and I never had that before in my life. Like I was always, I was very shy. I didn't speak much, and now I won't shut up, and that's how I am now. It helped me grow, but I never was liked by like anybody. Like I had two friends before I went to prison that were really actually there for me. Other than that, I had nobody. And prison, I was like the coolest kid in school, like it was just like it was just there for me. It was like the first place that I fit in.
Wow.
But then I found the key to happiness in there, and I learned, and I just worked on myself and my mental health. And like, I quit wanting to die in there. And like I said, I prayed to die every day as a child, 10 years old, until about halfway into my prison sentence. And so, I tell them I don't want to do probation at all, and that if they give me a chance, I'll do what they want, which is get out of Utah, and I won't be their problem anymore. And they took it and ran. They said, get us a bus ticket showing that you're going to leave the state on the day you get released, you do 10 more months and you're out of here. And I said, sure. I took that and ran. I signed that.
This seems unusual. Like this does not happen very often.
No. And everybody when I went back to the section, everybody was just like, you silver tongue, like slick motherfucker. They were pissed. And I spent the last 10 months writing people's board letters, like writing their letter into the board, like just wording things like, and like, they were just like, I don't know how you did it, but it worked. But yeah, don't get me wrong. In my opinion, 20 months is ridiculous, or 22 months altogether. 22 months is ridiculous, plus 2 months in a halfway house. So 2 years altogether of my life. So 2 years of my life dedicated over a fake ID. And it was 2 felony charges. The fake ID was called forgery. It was a forgery charge. They told me to tell them who made it or go to prison for making it. So the second charge was manufacturing forgery, even though I didn't make the ID and they didn't have any proof of it.
Wow. Also, it's 2 very formative years of your life. You were very young when this happened, a young adult. And that's crazy. I know so many people.
21 in prison. I turned 21.
You turned 21 in prison. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Are you quoting
that was song? So I got in 2010 and didn't leave till 2012. So
that's crazy. And so when you get out, you have the card from your bounty hunter. Did you take him up on that job?
So I got out of Utah, or else I would have, but I kept my word and I left Utah. So
did you go straight to Missouri, or did you go somewhere else in between?
I went to Nevada. I went to Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay.
And I had some ups and downs, and there were some parts of my life that got really difficult that made me want to go back to prison. The next year was very rough on me. So
I imagine it was hard to find a job.
When this happened. That's when this wasn't there until that year after prison.
And you're pointing at your forehead tattoo right now.
Yeah.
What is the forehead
that's
tattoo
my first
mean?
face tattoo. That was my first face tattoo. So.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah. So I was covered in tattoos, but not anything on my face. But I had my neck and I had my arms and my hands before. I had this whole arm before I turned 16.
Oh, okay. So what did you do for work then? How did you make your way as someone who just got released from prison? Because I know it's not easy to get a job.
I went right back to crime instantly. First day instantly. I had a lot of hatred for corporations and hatred for like being somebody else's bitch after prison. Like I just wasn't going to do it, Luckily I found something that works for me and, other stuff where I can make money legally. But so like I got out in November of 2012. By January, I was arrested. They impounded this U-Haul that we were living in. And it wasn't that we were living in because we had a house and everything, but we were driving this U-Haul doing stupid stuff for like ridiculous amount of time. So they impounded this U-Haul I was staying in, and I have another fake ID on me. And
you're over 21 at this point, so it wasn't used to get booze.
I was over 21, and luckily for me, and I didn't even know I had it. It was just because it was in my box of stuff. They went through a box of my stuff, and they had this fake ID. And luckily, the picture was so much different than what I looked like then that it didn't ruin my life. And luckily, the most important thing that I was in Nevada because it didn't. So I do get arrested again for the fake ID just because they pull up my record and stuff like that. But I go and I talk to the judge in Nevada. I'm like, hey, I had a warrant. That was the craziest thing is when I got released from Utah, I had a warrant in Nevada the whole time.
Really?
Yeah. I had a bad check warrant from the month I got arrested.
A bad check. Okay.
Yeah. So like I wrote a check and it was supposed to clear in cash. But when I went to jail, my ex had access to my funds and stuff like that. And it was a bad scenario. I had a bad check warrant. They take me in on that anyways. They search the truck. They find a fake ID. And luckily the picture was so old. Luckily, when I went to the judge, I explained to him that was it. And they just dismissed it right then. And like what they should with something like that. You know what I mean? I ended up having to pay. I paid the $1,000. It was a $600 check. I had to pay $1,000 to clear that up. I had to pay a $1,500 driving with a suspended driver's license ticket. Everything was done, and I'm like, for that moment, I thought I went back. Like I'm telling this cop's getting all angry with me. He called my girlfriend at the time a trick, and I'm telling this cop I'm gonna fuck him in the middle of the street. Like, I mean, it was rough. I'm like, I instantly went back to prison me. You know what I mean? And that's my biggest issue is I think that my anger has never matured. Like the rest of me has matured. I've matured. I don't do stupid things anymore. But my anger, I don't think I had anger issues until I went to prison. And I think like I get some type of trauma from being in prison where every time I got angry in there, that it's like any little confrontation, I'm like back to prison, like prison rules. There's no rules. Like I'm going to be more fucked up than you.
Do you still feel that way?
Oh, I get like that real quick sometimes. Like today I had a moment and we witnessed a guy abusing an animal.
Oh.
Me and my son did. And I was just instantly, I'm like, sit in the car, I'll be right back, And luckily there was no violence or anything like that. But I let him know that if I didn't leave with that dog, that it was going to be.
Yeah.
So today was a bad example. Today was probably one of the worst days I've had with my anger like that. I was right there in his face.
I'm okay with that one though.
I am to an extent, but I just know that I can be better.
When did you become a minister? Where does you becoming a minister and or becoming ordained come into it?
Man, I think it was Missouri did it to me. So we're driving to Illinois to help my sister move. My sister's the one that decided to move out here. And I look out here and what do you said you're from St. Louis, so
yeah.
So I'm terrified of heights, so I wasn't going the Colorado way to Illinois. So we go through Vegas, we go through I-40, and we come in through Arkansas, Fort Smith and stuff. And it's really dark, and I'm at the top of this mountain, and I can't see. And so I'm like, we're staying here. We pulled over, and we got some sleep in it was at the end of this mountain that I had to drive through, and it was the Ozarks, but it wasn't Fort Smith. It was a small little town on the bottom of Fort Smith, Fayetteville.
Fayetteville, okay.
And so the next morning I wake up and I'm in the most beautiful land I've ever been in my life. I have never seen anything more gorgeous than Fayetteville, Arkansas. I tell my wife, I call her up and I'm like, I need to live out here. It don't have to be Arkansas, Fayetteville. Somewhere that the trees are this color, somewhere this beautiful. We get back on the road. About an hour later, we're in Springfield, Missouri. And it's like, I wear a lot of flannels, always have. And I'm like, welcomed there. You know what I mean? Like I'm dressing like they're people, flannel and a beanie, and they're not too scared of me. And I'm like, I start going in stores and I'm getting more comfortable reactions from people in Missouri with all my face tattoos than I ever did in Vegas, Utah, Nevada, nothing.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is interesting. And like, they're not just like youngsters or nothing, like old timers. They just don't care. And so I'm like, okay, well, I can see it. Well, I'm driving. I see, what you see out in Missouri is you see a church everywhere.
Yep.
And I'm just like, you know what? I probably passed 1,000 Baptist churches between Springfield and Illinois. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about the west part of Illinois. Like we were only in Illinois for 30 minutes after, and that's where we stopped. Like 1,000 Baptist churches, not just there's so many other churches, but Baptist churches. Right. And I'm like, there is, and I'm not trying to hate on Baptist people. I would welcome any Baptist person to come talk to us and talk to me and anything like that. And I'll even, hold my swear words off a little bit and be a lot polite, But I know that with all of those churches, where do all of these people like me and people that are different lifestyles and, and I'm not trying to be rude, but everybody knows if you got more Baptist churches in your town than you do gas stations, then you probably have a pretty racially divided town. You also have a town that doesn't accept gay people very well.
Yep.
Now, I might not be politically correct with the way I speak and certain words and certain things at all times, but I will never hate somebody for their sexual preference or their skin color because my mother raised me better than that. Like from the beginning, I never clicked with that white boy shit in prison. I didn't let it fly in prison. I damn sure ain't gonna let it fly out here. And juggalos have always been that way. Like we were strongly like against racism, and there's some homophobia in some of the juggalo music, but Mikey Clark was pretty much like the third member of ICP, and he's in that community, and he was always praised and loved. So,
Really?
Yeah. He produced like most of their older music, and I mean, he's just a fantastic person. No, I have a lot of love for a lot of people, and I just feel like addicts, minorities, just different people needed a place that they can talk to and an outlet that they can go. And especially, man, I really got into helping people get off drugs.
Really?
That is, when my wife got out of rehab, I was her only friend that didn't use. And that was our bond. That's what built our relationship. And I tell you what, trying to help people get off drugs is probably the most amazing feeling you'll ever get. So I definitely that's what my minister program is mainly for, is helping people that are either ex-cons or drug addicts try to find other. So I don't care what you believe in. You can believe in Jesus. You can believe in a doorknob. You can believe in the flying spaghetti monster, whatever. I don't care. I just want everybody to know that life is more important than shooting shit in your arms or living your life in a jail cell because you think that's all you'll ever be able to do.
Wow.
And like I found the key to happiness, and it is gratitude, 100% gratitude. You find something to be thankful for, hold on to it, don't ever let it go. Something that they can't take from you. So I was gang segregated. I didn't get much letters. I didn't get phone calls. I could call my mom every once in a while, and because of how I tried to commit suicide and stuff. The first year of me being in there, when I would call my mother, she wouldn't even tell me she loved me, and that's a rough thing to endure, you know. And I'm a mama's boy, like 100%. So that to know that I broke my mom like that, and I put my mom through that. Oh, and then like my first day out, she comes and gets me, and even though it's been 10 years, my mom looks so much healthier and so much better today. I could see what I put my mom through in her face. I've never seen my mom look as horrible as she did the day she picked me up. She had gray hair. She was bigger than I've ever seen her. And I was just like, I didn't even know who I was looking at. Wow. And I felt like I'm responsible. And oh my goodness. I couldn't believe that I did that to her. But I knew once I seen my mom's face that I needed to stop. Now, life was hard. I went back to crime a little bit, but had kids. Once I had kids, I stopped doing anything that would really take me away. I didn't stop 100% of stuff until I had a conversation with my son. He said something that just changed my life. He was only like 2 years old.
Yeah.
And so that would have been 2015. I quit all illegal activity and changed my life for the better.
What did he say to you that was so life-changing?
Okay, so it's kind of a little bit of a story, but so this guy that I had a vehicle parked at his house had stole this subwoofer from me. And it was a very like recognizable subwoofer. It was worth like $1,500. It was old as could be. It weighed like 85 pounds. Like I said, it's very recognizable. I knew he stole it, but I couldn't prove it. So about 6 months went by, and I found it on Craigslist. So at this time, I moved back to Utah, into Cedar City, Utah. But I saw on Craigslist in Nevada, where I'm from, that that subwoofer was for sale, and it was by the guy who did it. So I pretended to be somebody else. I had this old Mercury Grand Marquis that we rigged red and white lights to look like an undercover cop car to. I had my friend. And the moral of the story ended up being so perfect. Like the friend of mine ended up stealing my car and driving to California. So I got what I deserved for even doing my part in it. But I pay this guy who is like a known addict, and I just give him money because I know that he'll do whatever I want him to do, and I don't have to risk my freedom. And I can still be a father. And so I pay this guy. I said, here's this money. We're going to get my subwoofer. I'm going to put the subwoofer back in my car. You're going to drive my car. I'm going to be in the passenger side. You're going to put him in cuffs, get him out of the vehicle, take the subwoofer out. I'm going to drive off. And what happens to him, what happens to his truck, that's on you. But here's money, you know. Now, this guy was a friend of mine at one point, the person who it's going to happen to. So as we are walking up, it's not enough for me to get my subwoofer back. Like, subwoofer's already in the car. I want to rub it in his face. So I get out and I walk up to him just to let him know he's cuffed up and he can't do anything. And all of a sudden I hear a little girl scream. And I'm like, oh no, this junky dude that I knew forever is driving around with stolen equipment and drugs on him. And he's got his like 9-year-old daughter who has Crohn's disease in the passenger seat of his truck, and she was passed out. And his daughter knows me very well. And his daughter wakes up and says, "Dad, what did you do?" And oh my goodness, it was just like, I'm like, dude, she just saved your life. Like, he wasn't going to die, but like, she just saved your situation. So I call off the other dude. I'm like, Chris, you got to stop. He's mad. I'm like, you keep the money, whatever. We got to go. Grab the subwoofer, uncuff him. And like he's testing it. As soon as we uncuff him, he's like mouthing off, getting all loud, like he wants to fight or something like then. And I'm like, dude, you literally just should take your chance and run with it while you can. And but she looked at him and said, Dad, what did you do? I got home. My son ran up to me and said, Dad, what'd you do? And man, did I feel this big.
Wow.
Did I feel like an ant? Like, like I never wanted to feel that again.
And you haven't done it since?
No.
How old is that kid now?
Oh, he is going to be 9 next month. So.
And I'm sure your kids are proud of you.
Oh, yeah. They love me. They all love me.
And so you got married and you've got children and now you're a grandpa.
Yep. My stepdaughter, she welcomed her first baby on August 23rd. So.
Well, congratulations, Grandpa.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, we just got back from seeing him. It was very, very exciting. So.
And what is that baby going to call you? What's going to be your grandpa name?
I like Gramps.
Gramps, okay.
Simple,
Going to be Gramps. So do you still consider yourself a juggalo now that you've turned everything around and your life is so different now?
Okay, so it's yes and no. So like if we're in prison, yes, I stand up for who I am. It's on my body. I'm not going to act like somebody who isn't something that, represents. So like if I'm in prison and somebody asks me, what, are you a juggalo? Yeah, I am. What of it? If you ask me if I'm a juggalo gang member, I don't believe that is something that should go hand in hand together. So right. I do believe that I was a gangster to an extent. I do believe I lived a life of crime. I believe I was a horrible person for a long time. And I do know that it doesn't take much on the wrong day to get me back to some bad thoughts and bad ways. But I also know that for everything negative, there is positive. And every time I try to convince myself, and I have since, that's what I felt like when I tried to kill myself, I felt hatred in my heart. It weighed down on me. It was so heavy. And that's how I knew that there was something else. Okay, I could feel that. I could feel it. I could actually feel it. Like it was something I could feel. And if there's that much negative energy in this world, then there has to be that much positive energy in this world, because I believe in that for sure. Wow. So I feel like every time I get angry and every time I get mad and every time I get back in my ways or want to, that energy is just showing me how much negative energy I am still capable of receiving and how much work I need to put in to make sure I get that positive energy to balance it out. And so, that's what this tattoo is on my, in between my eyes there.
So it looks like a Star of David type of.
Yes. So I looked up what it originated when I became a minister. I was, I'm big on symbology. I'm big on numerology and astrology. I just love that stuff. So anyways, the original of the hexagram is masculine and feminine. Okay. Oh. So that within itself, that there has to be a balance if you want to be a happy person. You have to have a balance of masculine energy and feminine energy. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You have to have that balance. So I liked that from the beginning, but then I took it there. And to me, it was the balance of positive up and down. I was diagnosed with manic depression, which is up and downs. So that right there is up and down. That's my balance. Remember that. Try to stay there. So
in general, as an adult man, are you happy now?
Oh, I am as happy as can be. That is for sure.
Good. I love to hear that.
Yeah, I definitely. So like my tattoo originated from the psych ward I was in. I drew this on my face the first time I ever stood up for myself, and it says hate when you see it in a mirror.
Oh, okay. It sure does, doesn't it? Now it makes sense.
Yeah. Once in like 2020, I decided to change it up a little bit, and I put liberate me from hate. So
look at that.
Yeah. coming around full circle now, you know.
I love it. You are an inspiration. This was such an interesting story, and I appreciate you being so open and vulnerable and telling me everything and putting it out there for the world to hear. And I'm so glad that Amanda hooked us up together. I feel honored that you'd be willing to tell me the story.
Yes, I'm happy to do it. And Amanda is the one that talked me into doing it. I love Amanda very much, and her pet chicken named after my wonderful son, Felipe. Shout out to both of them.
Shout out to Amanda and Felipe.
Yep. Nice to meet you. You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining me this week on Delightfully Different. Coming up next week, I talk with Kate, who teaches the Silva method, which claims to help people change their lives and possibly give you psychic powers. If you or someone you know lives life differently, email me, lexiontheradio@gmail.com. That's LEXI ontheradio@gmail.com, or go to delightfullydifferentpodcast.com. Until next Thursday, have a delightful week.